see the remote control, Phil? Do you see the remote control? Maybe I left it in the back. Oh, there it is. People who just all right, I do want to let you know on the back table there, Bob put his stuff out too. So whoever wants to take those books, I do know I think we have 6 or 8 churches represented here. So let's just do the church representation. So we obviously have Graceway, Valley, Highland Crest, Mapledale. Of course, Guy can get it to as many people as we want. So, but we don't. My point is, we don't want to take any of those books back. So, can you guys just make sure it gets back? And in regards to our last discussion, I would just like to. I would just like to go back to that shaping influencers. I just want to say this out loud. You are the shaping influencer. For some, you already have been for many people, but you still can be for more people. And I think you actually influence more people when you do it intentionally. And I'll just throw this out there to you. If you give them some of these extra books, just say, oh, no, I've already got that book. Well, think beyond yourself. Can you give this book to somebody else? Is there anybody that you can hand this book to? Can you hand this mug off to somebody else? All right, so does anybody know what Proverbs chapter 18, verse 16 says? Proverbs 18, verse 16 says this: a gift ushers you into the presence of the great. Another translation say, a gift will give you an audience. But like if you give somebody something, and I do say what you want about NAM, but when you give somebody any gift, it builds positive vibes. You with me? So feel free to take all this extra stuff, please. We won't take it. All right, if you go to page 10, we're doing identifying potential planters. So in lieu of just finishing dinner or lunch and everything, we won't make you get up and run around. But I will ask this question as we get started. These are the 2 questions, and they're on page 10. What should you look for? Where could you look? So, in some ways, our church planters, it is a bottleneck. I will just say this. So this is a shift. Remember this. As you're doing all this with me and with us, a church planter, I've been at this 21 years. A church planter for a long time could just say, hey, I want to plant a church. I would say, well, praise God, let's start talking, let's make it happen. Now it's not that way. The very first thing a church planter does is they register. The registration process on NAM takes 5 minutes. The second thing they do is called the application process. Before I do the application process, the people at NAM will ask me, well, who's the sending church? Good point. So we have a church planter. Can I give you real life examples to tell you about people? We have a guy in Hayward, Wisconsin. He was in the military in Hawaii. He was at one of the bases. I forget which one. He was a Marine. You guys can probably help me out. I think he was on Oahu at that base. So he moved. During COVID, he's one of those guys that wouldn't get the shot. He moves back home. His wife is really from Hayward. Long story short, he moves to Hayward, Wisconsin. I tried to hook him up with one sending church. He didn't like that sending church. I said, okay, why don't you find a sending church? Right? So I've got a guy in Texas right now. He's a barber. He teaches barbering at a high school in Texas. He wants to move here. His wife has got all kinds of people in the Chippewa Valley. He wants to move here. Well, where are you going to church now? He goes, well, I'm just preaching at different places. But do you see how it's kind of on the planter to actually help get the sending church? It's not all about just us getting the sending church. Does that make sense? But you get the point. The sending church is like supremely important. We cannot do this anymore. The guy can't just say, I'm just going to plant the church and say, I want to come to Clintonville or Shawano or what's the other place we've talked about at Highland Creek? What's the other, starts with a P? Pulaski, or name another suburb of Green Bay. Hobart's been mentioned. De Pere? Lawrence. So we have to have, a sending church has to be sponsoring these people. And that is in the application process. So here we go. What do you guys think we want to look for?
So let me just, so that's just.
Yeah, Bill.
If NAM is going to be helping us support and sponsor that, right? I mean, a church can do it alone, I guess, right?
Absolutely. And there are churches that do it without NAM's help.
Okay. But if NAM is going to help, then you have to follow this process.
That's right. Thank you for just saying it out loud in a better way. If you want the support of the North American Mission Board, the funding, the startup funds, all the other materials, resources that come for free, you have to have a sending church like Graceway, like Valley Baptist, like Mapledale. Yeah, Phil.
To answer your question, what should I look for? The first
Yeah.
thing I'm going to ask is a two-part question.
Yeah.
What is your plan, and does your plan align itself to God's plan?
Okay. So you're looking for alignment with God's
I
will.
want to see if their will, is this their will or is this God's will?
How about their vision? Does their vision need to be aligned with your vision?
Be aligned with God's vision?
Be aligned with the sending church's vision too?
Yes.
Part of this, Mark, is this could get sticky in a hurry. Like our friend Derek Schutz from West Bend area, who I know is bothering you every day.
Yeah.
Bothering me every day.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that guy for a second, though, guys.
Yeah, because that's a classic.
Okay. So there's this guy named Derek. Derek is mentally challenged. Probably, literally, perhaps the last 5 years he's talked to me. He comes up every few months or 6 months or 9. It's sort of sporadic. And I know he's talked to Guy. I know he's talked to Keith Cogburn. But he has talked to us a lot. And, well, Derek, he's in West Bend, okay? You guys know where West Bend is. Well, Derek, what church do you go to? Derek, all right, so when we talk about what do you look for, this might sound really stupid, but they need to have a car. They need to be able to drive a car. So Derek says, I said, Derek, can you drive? No, I cannot drive. But he can't drive because he's mentally challenged. Are you with me? Like he's not be able to drive in the state of Wisconsin. For good reason, right? I mean, protect us, correct? So it might sound silly, but like we do need to have some bare minimum qualifications here. And we really don't have a city except Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's not really that set up for it on public transportation. Madison is public transportation if you're a professor or student at UW-Madison. But what I find is somebody's going to have a car. I know that sounds really silly, but it's very important.
The point with that is he's got all this zeal.
Yes.
And a little bit of knowledge.
And he literally has asked me, I can't tell you how many questions,
Yeah.
but we can't help him. He can be part of a team. I know like he's attempted to hook up with, if you guys know who Larry Griffith is at Brown Deer
Yeah.
Baptist Church. And is that a Germantown address, or do you guys know? But anyway, it's Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's a great example. But like these two guys I'm talking about, like have cars. The one guy in the military, the Marines, I mean, don't you want to, I mean, I love the Marines. I think it would be great to have a Marine plant in the church. He knows, he was so what turned me on to that guy was like, he contacts NAM himself. So these are people, there are people that contact the North American Mission Board, and then they contact me. And he's one of those guys. And like, he's leading people to Christ, he's discipling them, he's starting his own small groups in Hawaii at this base, at this military base. I mean, doesn't that sound like a church planter? A potential planter. But then he's got all these other hang-ups. You know, he's got the COVID hang-up. He's got these other hang-ups like, that church can't sponsor me because of such and such. Well, I don't live in driving distance of the Southern Baptist Church plant, but I do know there's people from Hayward that go to Jacob's Well in Eau Claire. I do know that for a fact. Like Paul Berthume, the pastor himself, lives 40 minutes away from Jacob's Well, and he drives that far. But you get the idea. You get the picture. So what are some of the key characteristics? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what we are looking for in a church planter when it comes to characteristics. And, of course, number one is integrity. We have to have some level of integrity. Nobody's perfect. But help me out. Let's just talk about this and work on this together. Mel.
Well, you have to be friendly to a point where people would trust him immediately.
And you know, like I've met people that go, well, I don't really like people, I just like to preach. But you know, but Guy, you've met them, you know what I'm talking about. But they're at Southern Seminary, I know. But I just want to preach and teach, so I know Howard Hendricks really. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Howard Hendricks. He's one of my all-time favorite people because we don't teach the Bible. We teach students the Bible. We teach people the Bible. And I've hung with that. I think that's awesome. Because if you're just teaching the Bible, you might as well just teach to the wall.
I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When we went with Juan and Peter, we took him to lunch.
Yeah.
And at the restaurant we went to, there were several Spanish-speaking serving. He ended up in the kitchen with 3 or 4 of them. He has their names and addresses and phone numbers.
Yeah.
They loved the guy because he could speak English, but he also could speak their language.
Yeah.
And immediately, they fell at home with him. That's why I think he's going to do a great job here, but that's the kind of person you have to have that they'll actually take you where you're not supposed to be.
The ability to connect
That's it.
emotionally, not just teaching a truth, but you got to connect emotionally first.
Yeah, in the Marine Corps, we call that mission-driven.
Mission-driven. So you want this Marine guy? You can help me out with this Marine guy.
I don't know, that guy's beyond help, but,
If we come to the chase, I mean, really, what we look for are potential church planters that could meet the expectations of the assessment.
Yep.
Which covers all this problem.
Right. So and back to that assessment, I just want to make sure all those books got passed out, that like those kits, but that 9 characteristics, that's what Guy's talking about. He's got to have all that.
Yeah.
All right, here's the other, this is the fine line now. The fine line between confidence and being a prick. If that's not, is that a bad word? I'm sorry. But being arrogant, all right, because we want the guy to be confident, right? But like, so this has happened, all right? So like, let's just take Highland Crest, for example. So you have multiple staff at Highland Crest, right? Let's say he's in a staff meeting and goes, hey, guys, I got this. I know how to do this. This is what we did in Texas. Well, better hold back on the reins there a little bit. So I call it having respect for the existing leadership. Because, like, don't you guys think you know a little bit more about Green Bay than I do? I've not lived here. Like, you guys are talking about all this stuff. It's like, I've got no idea what you're saying. I do want to let you know, though, my alma mater is Indiana State University. Did you know you've had several players from Indiana State University play for the Green Bay Packers, including Robert Tunyon? I saw him catch a touchdown pass. And one of my few visits to Lambeau. But anyway, how about this? Never underestimate where the person comes from. They can come from Indiana State University and plant a church. If they can come from Indiana State and play for the Green Bay Packers, they can come from Indiana State and plant a church, right? And isn't it interesting that we have this special partnership with Rio Grande Bible Institute? And there's other schools. So like, do y'all know Larry Kramer? Have you ever heard of Larry Kramer? So Larry Kramer is part of that Baptist College of Florida. I could start going on and on, all the people in our state convention. So Paul Freese, Chris Phillips, Rebecca Phillips. We've had 3 different interns from Baptist College of Florida. But if anybody's never heard of it, it's a little small school in the panhandle of an undesirable town to live in called Graceville, Florida. But for some reason, God chooses those people, and almost every pastor I've ever met from there has done an incredible job. And I can't explain it, but like there's several schools like this that God is using in powerful ways. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, why are you doing that, God? I don't know. But that's where to look for them. What else should you look for? They have a calling, and they have to articulate that call. And so this really happens at assessment. So you get this white sheet, and you're going to have to get together with about 3 candidates and all their sending reps. And so this just happened with Juan Lupita. So Nikki and Brian witnessed this, and they have to put their calling, their journey to the church planting call on this piece of paper. And they're going to have to, they ask them, how sure are you're going to plant this church? What do you think the correct answer is? It's not, and I've actually watched people say 50%, 71%, 92%. I've watched a wife say 100%. The husband said 56 or something. Wrong answer. So that's where we have to have a calling, and I say a calling to an area. So if you're going to come here to Green Bay and you're going to hate the Green Bay Packers, you go somewhere else. Right? But like if you go plant a church in Dallas and you're going to hate the Dallas Cowboys, why don't you go somewhere else, right? Here's a big one. So it's not a matter if there are going to be problems, unexpected problems. There are going to be unexpected problems, right? We're going to have more problems. They're going to hit a wall. What characteristic do we need for that? Resilience is a really big one. We need resilience. And along with that, we need an entrepreneurial mindset. So it's one reason a lot of ex-prisoners are actually good church planters, is because they think entrepreneurially. They can't get a job if they can start businesses. And that's actually been proven. That stuff's like, there's research that shows that. So it's like we have to have this on, because, okay, when a church dies, I hear this. Well, we just didn't have enough money. Well, we just didn't have enough people. We didn't have enough help from the sending church. We didn't have enough, help me out, guy, what else do they say?
Faith.
We didn't have enough faith.
The carpet was blue.
The carpet, yeah, we had the wrong color carpet. But what's another reason people give, why they fail? Those people kept riding me. They gave me a hard time.
They didn't care.
They didn't care about me.
It's always somebody else's fault.
It's always somebody else's fault. They pass the blame. But the successful church planters say, well, we got thrown out of this building, and then we contacted this person, and God opened the door here. And you know what? We lost funding from this Texas church, but we got it from the Missouri church. So by the way, if you're writing this down, we have official partnerships with the Texas Baptist Convention and the Missouri Baptist Convention. So in the case of, this is just open stuff. I don't have secrets, right? But this is stuff that really happens. So in the case of Juan Lupita, there's no guarantees, but because of their relationship with First Baptist San Antonio, and they cannot give to, this is where politics comes in, they cannot give to the Texas Baptist Convention, the Southern Baptist Convention of Texas, but they only give to the Baptist General Convention of Texas. We have 3 years of funding and startup funds for them. But especially because Juan Lupita have been working for this group called River Ministries, which is all intertwined with Texas Baptists and the Rio Grande Valley, et cetera, there's a pretty good chance that we'll get that funding for them. But that's the type of thing we think of entrepreneurially. And I know from the doing the Harrison assessment with Juan, he's extremely entrepreneurial, as you guys have experienced. So the other thing that we can do on any potential church planter, I have this thing called the Harrison assessment, and I've been running that on the husband and the wife before we take them to the NAM stuff. Because the NAM stuff is a grind. And so I did that with Juan Lupita a year and a half ago when they were still in Mexico. I've been finding that's very important. And we actually have a customized job success formula in the Harrison assessment. And we know they need to enjoy their job 75% or more of the time. If they do that, they're 4 times more likely to succeed. All right. So this is not in your notes anywhere. But we have 3 ways that we make choices. So number 1, suitability. That's how much you enjoy it. Number 2 is eligibility. Do you have the capacity to pull this thing off? Like we're talking about Derek, that young man Derek, who has this huge heart for the Lord, but he doesn't have the eligibility, right? He has the suitability, he doesn't have the eligibility. Number 3 is favoritism factors, our chemistry factors. So forgive me, I think I said this during the potluck, didn't I? Some of these things. But here you go. I worked with this lady from Texas. Her name is Laura Walker. She did her PhD. Very little has been written on favoritism. 3 types of favoritism. Nepotism. Does everybody know what that is? Family. Number 2, second type of favoritism is called cronyism. Well, I've known Mark for 30 years. He'd be a good NASA astronaut. Yeah, no bad idea, right? Number 3 on favoritism is congenialism. I really like Mark. He'd be a good crane operator. No, another bad idea, right? But think about in church, how many people get picked because they've known them a long time or they just really like them. And it actually happens in the business world too. Would you agree, Bill?
I used to say when somebody got promoted, because they were doing a good job,
Yeah.
that the company would promote them beyond their ability.
Yeah, and that's the eligibility factor. So it's suitability, eligibility, and the chemistry factors. But so much in church work, I can just say about church work, and I do know from business people talking to me, these factors enter in. Obviously, there's lots of times that, there's like a computer programmer, it becomes pretty obvious, a systems analyst or software engineer. It's going to become pretty quick if they don't have the eligibility. But so many borderline jobs, we see that done. So those 3 pieces, and we call it 30, 40, 30. So 30% suitability, 40% eligibility, and 30% these chemistry factors. Call them whatever you want, favoritism. So you do have to like the person. It does help if you've known the person for a while, right? Like if Rick Schultz recommended somebody to me, or Chad Hertmer, I'm going to take a really close look at them. Because I've known them guys for a while, right? All right. How about this? Where do we start looking for these people? This is where we're talking about the schools, but where do we find these people? So Guy and I graduated from the second largest seminary in the world, the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky.
I've got your dissertation on my shelf, but anyway.
Yeah. So, but is that really the best place to look for a church planter?
Maybe.
Our experience has not been.
True.
Our experience is it could be here in one of your churches, or in somebody else's church, somebody that you know, or somebody that we see demonstrating success. It could be one of our Missouri Baptist friends. Where else where would you look for potential church planters?
Recently started up church plant.
Recently started church. How about youth ministers? But if they're in this church plant that just started, they watched a church plant start. So they know how to do it. And youth ministry people, so we did used to have a joke saying the assessments are geared for the mad white youth church planters because they want to get out of the existing church that they don't like. But the thing that I think about too is we don't want angry people because it's got to be built on love. And that's also a foundation we've seen. Everything's got to be built on God's love compels us. 2 Corinthians 5:14 is one of my favorite passages. It's got to be God's love motivating us and not anger or something negative. It could be initially a spark, but it can't be the long-term factor. Bill, do you mind just revealing, you don't have to reveal names, of course, but reveal, you're looking for an associate pastor right now. Where are you guys attempting to find these guys?
We put out for the announcement in the 5 Southern Baptist universities or colleges, Gospel Coalition and the SBC.
Okay. Do you guys know what the Gospel Coalition is? Can you just explain Gospel Coalition to the people that don't know what it is?
No.
Can you explain it, Guy?
It's essentially a network of like-minded evangelical gospel players that have a large voice nationally in the evangelical realm, simply said.
And people are making their decisions, like I'm sure you're registered on there in Highland Crest as a Gospel Coalition church, right, on their website? People make their decisions that they'll attend your church if you're a Gospel Coalition church. Did you know that?
Or Acts 29, or any one of the other networks that are out there these days.
Yeah, so these movements, we can start listing them off. Acts 29, Salt Company, High Point Network, all these movements. But if you're not in the movement, it's hard to get somebody out of that movement. Are you with me? Salt likes salt, salt doesn't like pepper. Sorry, but it's true. Okay. Here's the 7 characteristics. The character, the competencies, convictions, calling, chemistry, culture, capacity. So the character, so we just had a guy move from Missouri, and he's just having personal problems, and he's asking, when can I get starting paid for my residency? Do you see what's wrong with the character there? Like right out of the gate?
Looking for money.
He's looking for money. It's not going to work. The competencies, these are the things we were talking about with entrepreneurial resiliency. You know, I don't know where you guys are theologically, but 90% or more of our churches are now preaching expositorily. And I think all your churches do preach expository sermons, correct? But that's like another competency that we're looking for. Can they preach and deliver well? And especially, can they preach expository sermons so God's word's communicated? They're not a lecturer. They're not giving up story after story. They have the convictions. And so the convictions are getting tougher and tougher because of the culture push. So that's where you need to think about what are the hills you want to die on. You know, and This is like a little commercial here in the middle of all this. I don't get any money for any of this, but one thing you really want to know is, if you need to redo your constitution bylaws, which I believe every church needs to update, you need to do Alliance for Defending Freedom, adflegal.org, because the push to get certain things done in churches by the outside world or they'll sue, the Alliance for Defending Freedom has attorneys. You join for only $250 a year, and you can go back and forth with their attorneys to redo your bylaws, update your bylaws. So our association did it. A number of our churches are doing it. But before Leo Endo left on May 1st of last year, they did it. I believe Mel and Jack came to that meeting. But I would really encourage that. That does go under convictions. Force is that calling. That's what we talked about. Gene brought it up. 5's the chemistry. You got to like this person, have something in common with them. I don't care what football team they're rooting for, but if they like hunting and fishing, they can make it in Wisconsin, right? But we've seen that happen. That's that which goes into 6 with culture. Are they at least somewhat of a fit for culture? So we don't really have it as much anymore, but people do move back south because of the cold. We have had successful imports, but they need to fit our culture. So I know I like sports, and sports can sometimes be out of touch with some people, but has anybody ever heard of the Indiana University football Hoosiers?
No.
Okay.
Just won the title.
They just won the title. So talk to us about that. So they're 16-0, right? First time since 1894. The coach came from James Madison University, and he developed his own culture. He had some Indiana people he kept. He talked to some people. He talked to some players when he first got there. The people that were like falling asleep on him, he threw them out, and he kept the rest. And then he brought in his own imports. So what we say is, when we're raising up church planners and leaders and people in our churches, do we import people? Yes. Do we raise people up from within? Yes. So we've been the portal before that guy got to Indiana, before Kurt Signetti got to Indiana. We've been having to bring people in, but we're also raising people up from outside. And then that capacity, that's when we were talking about that young man, Derek. But also, can somebody be normal and they just don't know how to lead people? So think about this. You guys help me answer this question. What's the difference between leading leaders and leading followers?
Leading leaders is micromanaging.
Leading leaders is micromanaging. If you micromanage a leader, won't he go nuts or she go nuts?
If you're raising up a follower, you're not raising up a leader.
Yeah. So, like we were mentioning all the Bible teachers, like I do love J. Vernon McGee, by the way. I love J. Vernon McGee, and I love John MacArthur. I love listening. But is there anybody else that's alive that we can listen to? And did those guys teach anybody else to preach? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you ever think about that question? I think about that question all the time. It's like, did they raise up anybody else? I don't know. Like when I think about Adrian Rogers, I'd never met him personally, but I've met a lot of his disciples that he raised up people. Like I know you got him on your list. All right, so those are the characteristics we're looking for. Any thoughts here? You guys have anything else? We've had these brainstorming activities. Ann?
I remember hearing some years ago about churches in Wisconsin that, I don't know if it was really an issue, but that people would come from the south and expecting to do church the way they did in the south, and it doesn't work in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That they, I don't, often, but sometimes it did work because they were trying to do it the same way they were used to in Wisconsin, not the south.
That's number 6.
Yeah.
And vice versa, we went from Indiana to Birmingham, Alabama. We didn't speak the Chinese and Laotians and blacks, and we had all that. We got to Birmingham and it was like, you are white or that's your church. We were not ready for that culture change. So
It's a big
culture
shift.
is huge.
Yeah.
So I served in a church in Panama City, Florida. A lady celebrated her 100th birthday when I was there. And, the TV stations came from all over the place. And we were having our very first African-American family join the church. And I remember going with the pastor to this visit. It was like a pivot point in my life. And this lady says, Brother Billy, says to the pastor, Brother Billy, we don't need any more in this town. And we don't need them join our church. I'm like, hello. Welcome to the South, pal. That's what I said to myself, But like I was at Golden Gate Seminary, just above San Francisco, where I was around everybody and their brother. You know what I mean? Like the Koreans outnumbered the white people. But it's like, man, I was just blown away. Yeah. But it could be bad culture. I do think on that. How many churches are doing Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and lots of other activities and committees? The churches that are doing that are struggling more than the ones that are not. A lot of those have died. Not saying everyone's died. Imposing the Southern culture on the North, like Ann was saying. If they impose it. Honestly, I'm just curious if this is going to, I love Rick's preaching, but so many of our preachers are preaching 50 minutes or more. It's tough for me to hang in. I'll just tell you that. All right, there's the character. Do they possess the maturity? 1 Timothy 3 is the most often used chapter. So some people are going to say 1 Timothy 3, 1 through 7 is deacons, and 8 through 13 is elders. We could get into a whole bunch of theological debate there, but I'll just throw that out there to you. If you're taking notes, 3, 1 through 7 is deacons, 8 through 13 is elders. But that gives you the characteristics. Do they have an accurate view of God, themselves, and others? Or, back to that arrogance thing. So there was one Hmong planter a few years ago. He passed assessment, but he thought for sure he's coming to Madison and that he was going to have 200 people in his church. He's going to start with 150 people. But an inflated view of himself, right? We want vision, but not inflated views. But this accurate view of God, themselves, and others.
I would say also an accurate view of the gospel.
Yes.
That seems to be Satan's biggest attack today, is to try to tweak that or skew that gospel just a little bit so that a believer has doubt.
Can they clearly articulate the gospel? And that comes out in assessment. And they want you to actually say the gospel out loud. But it's amazing how many people can't do it, This is the competencies. Can they preach? And the leading leaders. So there are so many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? But you're going to have to lead leaders if you're going to be successful. Or else the church is going to be a Bible study. Reach the lost. Can they win people to the Lord themselves? Can they make disciples? Have they discipled someone? In today's assessment, every single assessment, they ask the question, what is your discipleship plan? And so this is a whole new category compared to when I started. But what's the pathway from the first time they come to Christ to the time they become a mature believer? Can you articulate that pathway? How are you going to do that? These are the convictions we want. Can they explain what they believe in normal words? So once people start using the theological terms, they get lost. And that's pretty easy to do for preacher talk. And has their theology moved from theory to practice? So I think, during lunch, Bill was saying, how many people are all around their church, during the draft. But once they got off the property, boom, they would interact with you, right? But I think it's more than just a physical thing. I think it's like a spiritual, emotional thing too. mental thing, like once you start using the words, let's go down the list, what's some words that we use all the time that don't get used?
Salvation,
Salvation,
redemption.
redemption.
We're finding that in the financial world. No one likes the word church, but they thrive on the word congregation.
Yeah.
Just a simple word like that means all the difference in the world.
And articulate in a fashion that they'll accept and be drawn into.
They'll go meet a congregation, they want to go to church.
And that theology, moving from theory to practice, so once again, so we have 6 Southern Baptist seminaries, and depending what stats you listen to, it could be 30%, 65% will never work at a church. But it's kind of crazy. People going to our seminaries will never work at a church. They'll never move it from theory to practice. This is a calling. That's the articulate a clear and compelling vision to plant. So like, how can you put it in a way that people are drawn into? And this gets back to the calling. Are you really wanting to do this to reach lost people, or you want to do this to boost your own ego and have a big church or whatever? Just to have a church can be an ego booster for some people. And there's another one. All right, so this is where, long before I started using this thing called the Harrison Assessment, this is a personal journey thing. So in 2001, I was serving at a church in New Jersey. So you guys know what happened in 2001. 9/11 happened. It affected our church, affected me. We had 4 staff members. I was the last staff member to be there. We actually had back in those days, Southern Baptist had an outfit called the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. We had a split with them. But the pastor tried to take it to that. I didn't go that way. Long story short, I was kind of left holding the bag. I also graduated with my doctorate in ministry from Southern Seminary that year. And I was in the December commencement service. And Al Mohler, the president's preaching. He goes, this is, how he said, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. And I said, it's the end for me, pal. I'm toast. And that year in 2002, my wife and I went to this thing called a Wounded Ministers Retreat. And the counselor asked me, he said, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to just be part of a church. I want to be the pastor of a church that plants churches. He says, well, good luck with that, boy. I said, well, what do you want me to do? I don't know. He goes, well, you could go be a regional person. Start something new in the association? Good. Start something new at church? Bad. Right? But he said, your gifts and experience are much better than that. He said, you're like a little boy that runs and hits his head in the wall, and then you get back in line, you do it again. So this is the part where this changed my life. The gifts and experience, you want to match what the church planter has. So some people, and I've met them, they're called to be a pastor. They're not called to be a church planter. And that's okay. That's a good thing. So, here's the chemistry. They fit the culture of your church. Here's a big one. Do you want to spend time with them? Do you want to go fishing with them or camping with them or whatever? Do you want to hang out with them? Or do you just want them to leave? Culture. Do they fit where they want to plant? And we talked about that. Here's the capacity. This is a big question they ask. What have you started from scratch? What have you started from scratch? Is there anything that you've started from scratch? Can they grow? So just about everybody I know that has a sizable church, they've grown a lot as a leader, as they've grown from 60 to 150 or 300 or whatever. But they've had to grow up during that time. Charles actually asked me that question, right? You asked that question, don't you, Charles, when we're talking about buildings? What's their capacity as a leader? You asked that question out loud. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because if somebody builds a building for 500 people and they're only geared for 250, it's not going to go well.
There are a lot of things that are defining, well, that size church one thing that I look for in the business place, I would have younger guys, younger women and guys come to me, seem to be stamped on the forehead, I've got to be a manager. My test for them always was, can you lead people if they do not depend on you for salary or compensation? And where I would go from there is get experience leading volunteers where they are not depending on you for a paycheck. It's for other things that they want to follow you. And I really encourage them to find a volunteer organization, could be your local.
Because and your point is, it's a lot harder leading volunteers than leading people that are getting paid.
What you've got to be able to, especially in the church setting, you have to be able to lead people who do not depend on you for compensation, who want to lead because of the cause you're involved in, a call from God to be a part of it. Those are beginning points. What's the biggest organization you have led? The biggest group
Yes.
you have led? I'm not sure that answered your question.
No, it does. That hits this one here.
For lack of a better term, I call that herding cats. Because the harder you try, the worse it gets.
Well, I think anytime you're leading leaders, most people that lead leaders have at least said to me they're herding cats. They've used the phrase Guy
Yeah.
just used, because it's totally different than, oh, I just really love it when you preach. You know, you're not going to get that from leaders. You know. So summary questions, would I go with them? Would I want to be my pastor? All right. This is like a bold question now, but here we go. Do you have 3 to 5, do you have one person in mind that could be a potential church planter in your church right now? This says 3 to 5, is there one person? So as Ezekiel said to God, you alone, O Lord, know, right?
Well, actually, in our church, I've sent out 2 that we've had that were ready to be sent, 3 actually now. And I've got another that's coming in that may be being prepared as a succession plan internal.
Okay, so talk to us about, talk to us about one of those guys, Guy, that you'd like to talk about,
Sure.
that's been sent out.
The first thing you have to do is, we mentioned this earlier, is you just have to identify people that have the potential and then explore whether or not they're called to be called. You know, and then you start working with them to start sharing the inside aspects of what it takes to be a leader. And you're doing an internal assessment with them as you're going without telling them that you're assessing them, just to see whether or not they start meeting any of these issues that we've stacked up. And then the next phase is to put them in charge of small things and let them run. You know, kind of give over some authority and some leadership into their hands and see what they do with it and explore that potential. And when they get to that point, at that point, there's 2 options. Usually, are you going to develop them internally and keep them at home, which is what most of our churches are doing because we're dying for one good man that can help us? Or are you willing to send them to wherever God might be calling them? And in each of those cases, the thing that's been kind of the dividing line between internal or external usage is whether or not ultimately, as they develop in their leadership, can they stay there under your leadership without every day causing a conflict? Or are they really ready to run out there and try it on their own? And if the conflicts are to the point, and these don't have to be bad or nasty, it's just like every day there's a question. And it's like, maybe it's time for you to try this and see what comes of it. And if you've got all the answers, like your 17-year-old son, then go out there and use them while you got them, right?
It's time to, it is, it's like it's time to move on. Like you said, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and so one of them now is leading Hispanic ministry city. One of them is planting a mall church down in Milwaukee, and then the third one has left us all together, and he's doing a Foursquare church, but, I mean,
But that one guy, Joshua Lee,
yeah,
like he owns like a, so this is the other things you look for, like Joshua owns a 30-acre bamboo farm in Florida.
mhm.
He started a seminary in Vietnam, so he knows how to do some things.
Yeah, and these
Yeah.
guys were elders in my church and
Yeah.
are sent out, so that's fine, you know?
I think when Aaron Joswack was here,
Yeah,
it was somebody you see, you know, as a young man in the youth, and he stood out in the crowd.
yeah,
I mean, you didn't have to be around him very long to go, you're going somewhere, and you don't need to do it here, but you need to go.
yes.
Yeah.
But you,
We'll help you what we can, we'll help you on your way, but you need to go someplace.
but Tim, you saw in him. You could have the I see in you conversation with him.
Yeah, I mean, that was obvious to anybody that ever met him.
So remember this, when I had people from NAM around me at that time, they actually said to me about Aaron, we don't think he'll do too much. But like if you ever met Aaron, like when Aaron first meets you, he goes, hey. How many of you have met Aaron? So but am I right? He just goes like, hi. You're like, I don't think this is going to work out, Aaron. But the more you get to know him, the more, but like you talked about caring earlier, he really cares for you and loves on you, and he's an exceptional leader, but he isn't going to like wow you the first meeting. So that's the other thing you want to think about too, is like when Tim's talking about a guy like Aaron, who's super high capacity, he's become one of our best pastors. It's like, yeah, first impressions don't always do it, right? Because most people in Wisconsin, I've been visiting a lot of our churches. I don't always think Wisconsin people are real friendly. Hi, how you doing? Right? That's my who's your hospitality prejudice coming out. That's from Indiana.
I know a young man that I haven't seen him in years, but whatever happened to Levi Rocky?
Pastor over in Black Creek.
Yeah.
So this is giving you the time frame too to think long term. Like, who are some of these people? And then what's one step you can take? All right. All right, this is that guy's slide. I'm going to go do that one. All right, here we go. This is, we can turn to chapter 4 here, session 4, developing potential planters. So if you guys have had enough moving, can we just write in here at your table? What do you want them to become? Can you just take a minute or two? What do you want these guys to become? The other 3 sections are going to be these, the environments. Do you want them to come to a sending lab environment? Do you want them to be an environment where they're around other pastors? You know, rhythms. I know this might sound silly, but do you want them to come to church on Sunday? Do you want them to come to a Bible study or small group? What are the rhythms you want them to do? And then the content. These are the 4 areas. It's on page 12 in your book. But what do you want them to become? Like what, in other words, where do you want them to go as a person, as a leader? And these environments, you want them to going to certain conferences. You want to put them out in the hospitals. So I have this one guy who's written a whole bunch of stuff, but he doesn't know how to go visit a hospital. You guys could teach him how to visit hospitals. Right? So think about this for a second. Just take your time and fill this in.
What do you mean by rhythms?
Yeah, so rhythm is like, if you want to write this down, daily, weekly, quarterly, annually. What do you want them doing daily? What do you want them doing weekly? That's what I mean, going to church. What do you want them doing quarterly? Going to the Bay Lakes Association meeting, going to, I don't know, whatever conference you guys go to or whatever. I could start listing a whole bunch of stuff off. content, you know, like what books do you want them to be reading? So one thing churches have had interns do is they go work in the nursery, they go work with the children, they work with the youth. They do everything at least once. What we see with the SALT company is they're having them work with the community, they're having them work the SALT network with college kids, then they're in charge of small groups, they're like doing a variety of activities to teach them the overview of how things work. Because, you know, like one of the great questions pastors are asked, so what do you do besides preach on Sunday? Here's the environments question on the screen, if that helps you further. Here's the rhythms question. So most statistics say that most people are coming, a regular attender comes to church 2 of 4 Sundays a month. So when I was in church in the 1990s, they were there 4 for 4. But not now. And so if a church is averaging 80 people, they probably have way more than that attending the church. You probably have 125 or more coming, because people miss. And there's the content. What do you want them to learn? And then the bottom question is a big one. What specific skills do you want them to learn and master?
Facilitate a group.
What was the question?
I thought you asked the question last, I was answering the last question. And the answer is they have to be able to facilitate a group.
Oh, facilitate a group, yes. So don't you think, Charles, don't you think everybody, they have to preach, but then they have to be able to talk with people, not talk at people? Because you can tell if somebody's talking with you or if they're just keep on preaching, and it's supposed to be a small group or a situation like this where they're not really listening.
I'm listening.
Thank you, Joe. So coaching training tells us this. If you're really coaching people, you're supposed to be listening 90% or more of the time. It's very difficult, especially for pastors. Mel.
Can I go back to the question, what do you want your people to learn and practice? And you said that faithfulness now is 2 to 4 times a month in church?
Yeah. And I'm not being sarcastic. I mean, I think that's for real.
But I want to be sarcastic a moment.
Okay.
What about pastors who out of 52 Sundays are in the pulpit 40, 45 Sundays?
Yeah. So here's
Where are we learning our faithfulness? Is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
So here's what we would be saying on this. So I'm coming to defense of pastors. So I'm just gonna have like a little court session
I've
with
been on
Bill.
both sides, so go ahead.
But, all right, so I was a staff member for 12 years, right? I call it Minister of Youth and Miscellaneous. The pastor preached almost every Sunday, 50 or 52 Sundays, and they even preached on Sunday night. But what if I had a chance to preach? So if we talk about Aaron Joswack, he's one of those guys that is preaching 35 to 40 Sundays a year. So who's preaching when he's not preaching? It's people younger than him in his congregation that he's developing as elders. Are you with me? He's using it on purpose, not to take vacation, but to develop them. And in one way, it's actually harder because some of the sermons are really bad.
And if I looked at his life, I would say that's a man who's not faithful to his pulpit.
Okay, so that's where we could have our agree to disagree talk. But I'm serious, you know.
Well, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
There are other ways to train him.
Yeah, but if the pastor didn't show up, that'd be another thing too, though, if he didn't come.
I'm not talking about he's not even in his church.
Yeah,
He's out of the pulpit.
yeah,
We see that more and more, is all I'm saying.
yeah.
And I think we cannot tell our people to be faithful when we're not.
Well, I would say how he's using it. That's how I would say it.
Well,
But that gets back to that bottom question there, what specific skill?
people see, water seeks its own level. And I'm going to be as faithful as whoever's leading me.
Okay,
But why would I go any farther?
I think that the church needs to be behind the process that that pastor is trying to implement.
yeah,
And in that way, it would work. But if the church is not behind a pastor who's trying to implement those leaders developed from within, then the church would see that as a pastor deficiency.
yeah,
Isn't it one of the responsibilities of the senior pastor, to communicate that to those who follow?
Yep.
So they understand that he's not just taking a vacation, and there's a purpose behind it. For instance, playing a dual role of association and church pastor, I get to miss quite a few Sundays out of my church, and I've built into my church elders that can take the pulpit when I'm not there, which is developing them. But when I'm not there, where am I? I'm in one of our churches, the association
Yep.
churches, because that's part of what I get to do. I don't have the luxury of choosing.
yeah, yeah,
I think that awareness is, like Joe was talking about, and everybody else is talking about, is paramount to, we don't have secrets.
right,
And we want to we want to be mindful of our congregation, our church body, and we want to make them aware and make sure that they're included in the conversation.
yeah,
My wife and I were raised by parents who felt like God called them to their church. My mother and father wouldn't even come to my church when I was a youth pastor and preaching because they were called to their church. And they made that very clear to me. And it's made an incredible impact on my life. And so Gene would say the same thing. God called you there, be there. Everything else is secondary. And I think that's what we're missing. And that's why, I think that's why when you say it's 2 to 4 Sundays is faithful, again, I go back to leadership. We know that in America especially, everything rises and falls on leadership.
yeah.
If leadership's faithful,
Well, I guarantee you, John Maxwell, who said that quote, didn't preach 4 times a month.
Yeah, exactly.
I know he didn't, yeah,
Can I address a statement that you made, Mark?
yeah, yeah,
You said, even if it's a terrible sermon. All right, as a parishioner in the pew, and I invite somebody to come to church,
yeah,
whoever stands in that pulpit needs to have a message from God that they can deliver.
yeah,
If I invite guests, and I should be able to invite friends, visitors, family, at any time, and expect whoever's standing in that pulpit to deliver well.
and know their
of God.
topic.
yeah. This is God's word.
That's right.
Thus saith the word of the
That
Lord.
would be a concern,
Yeah, thus saith the
no
word of the
matter
Lord,
if the
yeah.
sermon is terrible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, your points are well taken, yeah. So what do you want the people to become? What did you guys write down? Let's brainstorm here. What do you really want them to become?
I don't mean to be flippant,
Yeah,
but I want them to recognize that godly called people.
right.
And I'm not being just flippant, I mean that you recognize in their life that they're growing.
You can see Jesus in them.
You hear it in their conversation.
Yes.
I would ask that they be number one, or become or be a person of integrity, confidence without arrogance, a personable and polite, and have empathy for others.
Yeah. You hit a big one for me, personable. If somebody's not personable to me, it's like I'm usually out of there. I check out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to churches where the pastor doesn't do like ours does. When the service is over, he goes to the back to greet all the body.
Yeah.
And I've been to churches where the pastor's just unavailable.
Right. A lot of them have the green room out back here. Yeah. I think research also shows that if the pastor's available before and after at least one or the other or both, his sermons are way more effective than if he's hiding in the green room.
And back to your coaching and the listening, which is in the teacher realm, I need to listen more than I talk. And when I listen, I learn about my kids.
Yeah.
So at the end of this time, how well does he know his people?
Yeah.
What are they struggling with? Who are they relatives with? How well do you know them? And you don't know if you don't listen.
Right.
We had a pastor, we had 1,200 in our church. He knew every family, and he knew everyone in the church who was related to that family, first name basis. Incredible man. But that church grew, and it was we saw people in the aisles.
And I will say, like when you meet somebody like that, that's a remarkable person.
It is.
Those are in the top 2 or 3% of the
But he
human
worked at it.
population.
He worked at it hard.
When you remember 1,200 people.
Yeah.
So they're going to say, this is like a lot of research, they're going to say 75 to 100 people max out. You know, you stop remembering everybody's name, but I do know what you're saying, and I know like one of our pastors, one of the guys we're trying to develop, he lives in Sparta, he's going to one of our churches in La Crosse. He's the guy that goes, I don't know how to do a hospital visit. But he's with a very pastoral guy now who does know how to do hospital visits. But I just remember doing hospital visits to my church in Panama City, church that ran 300, 350, and every time I went to the hospital, there's already a dozen or 15 relatives there. And like on your point, Gene, it's like when you visit the hospital, all of a sudden you're meeting everybody that's not going to church. It's like you're having actually outreach visits instead of ministry visits, visiting the sick.
Well, when Juan and Lapita came, I was in the hospital, and Juan said, I've got to go, and so Ryan brought him up to the hospital. And he had his Bible, and he sat down there
Yeah.
and prayed and read.
And I'm sure Juan,
He said that.
I'm sure Juan's visited a lot of hospitals. But that's one of the outcomes I want to see, though, is can they be the shepherd, the caregiver, not just the rancher? You know, can we go rustle up the horses, you know, the new people?
I said known for their love for the Lord and love for people.
That they care.
Yep.
Yep. Anybody else on outcome? What do you want the outcome to be?
I have an independent leader, mentor of true disciples of Christ.
How about this environment? What environments do you want them in? And by the way, they would be required to go to North American Mission Board environment. Just let you know. They're going to go to orientation. They're going to do a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
I would look for a person who knows how to find people where they live and not try to change their environment before they change their heart.
Yeah.
Too many want to go in and say, you need Jesus. Find out where they live first.
Yeah,
That's what I saw Juan doing in that restaurant. He was just finding out how their job was.
yeah,
How was their life? Did they have any issue? I mean, he wasn't even the pastor yet, he was already asking those questions.
yeah.
And I thought, that's the kind of man I want. You know, we've been in church for almost 75 or 77 years, and we've seen that. And it makes a great impact on your life.
Yeah,
And when you don't have it, it makes a greater impact.
yeah, yeah.
I would say, as far as environments, I don't want them to have their hand in everything in the church, because their plate is gonna get so full, they're gonna have to borrow another plate. You know, but I
Yeah.
want them to be involved.
Now, this is talking about training.
Oh,
This is talking about how do you develop them. So like if they're with the youth for 3 months, then they go work in the children's department for 3 months, something like that.
I'm sorry.
So like, this is pretty famous, but First Baptist New Orleans had them scrub the toilets. They scrub the toilets for 3 months. They clean the bathrooms. But they want them to relate to everybody. To get a taste of it, this is what that's talking about.
I'd say kind of the same thing, is just sit in different meetings and know what the.
If you go to the stewardship meeting, the finance meeting, the children's ministry meeting, those are the environments you want them to be in.
You at least got a flavor of what's
Yes.
going on in the building.
And do you need to become an expert in children's ministry? Nope. But if you sit in a children's ministry meeting, you're going to know, especially if you did it over a period of 3 months or longer. Do you see the and if they're in their, you call it your missions team, the REACH meeting, if they're in there for 3 months, you find out how you guys think.
Well, with Rick is, every team, he's at the meeting, and he's not there as an influencer, he's more there as an overseer,
Yeah.
to give a little feedback, or whatever, but he never tries to delegate or dictate.
Right.
at any of these meetings.
Well, I know, I felt like my 5 years in New Jersey was like an internship. So I sat in the stewardship meetings, and most of the people either worked in downtown on Wall Street or in Midtown. And like, how in the heck can we be looking at the same document? You know, how do they see all these things? I don't see it. You know what I mean? But there are certain things that other people get, you don't.
One of the things we've done in our church, because I'm like a lot of us, I'm having to develop leaders from square zero. And I give the potential leaders and actual leaders, deacons, elders, et cetera, all ministry assignments. And that's just a simple way of putting them in charge of one aspect of the overall ministry,
Yes.
so that when I need to go to a guy, I got a go-to guy.
Yeah.
And then it's up to him to draw in the help he needs to accomplish that from the others of his group.
And it's not forever either. These are temporary assignments even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ministry assignments, you know,
Yeah.
and, boy, it plays well. I mean, my deacons aren't at war because they don't have time, they all got stuff to do, et cetera, you know?
And here's the rhythms. So here's where Mel and Jean, we need you here every Sunday. But no, seriously, can I throw this out there to you? So there's a pastor in Milwaukee. He would come in after the church service had started and sit in the back row. So he would come in he and his family would come in and sit in the back row of the church. And when it was time for him to preach, he walked up and preached.
Yeah, I grew up under a pastor like that too, and that's one of the examples I had how not to do it, but anyway.
Yeah, but that guy's no longer there. He lasted less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Do we still seat in the back row?
No, he's not in the back row anymore. He's long gone. But part of what I think when I see somebody like that, I think nobody taught him. They didn't tell him the importance of being there before other people. Like if you're the pastor, I mean, show up 5 minutes before church, 10 minutes. I mean, you got to show up a while before church starts. But you got to go to some these meetings we were talking about. You know, you got to be part of some place where you're connecting. I know everybody's got different names: life groups, cell groups, discipleship D groups. You got to have them be part of these things.
Mark, there's an
one of my all-time favorite Sunday school teachers, his name is Tom Ulmer. He was the chief marketing officer, if any of you have heard of Farm Bureau Insurance. He had 3 on showing up. Here's what he had, Charles. He had show up on time, show up prepared. But it sounds really simple, but show up on time, show up prepared. I mean, that gets you a long way in the world. Business world, church world, teaching. So one thing in the residency builder, at the end of the residency builder, if you come to Milwaukee in May, you come away with a written plan. So we have at least about 5 churches now in Wisconsin that have a written plan to develop residents. So the resident could be, you could even throw another word on it, intern. But there's a plan in place. Are you a nurse, Mandy? I know you're a nurse practitioner, but I mean, but isn't there a plan if you're an intern? Like, you're not like, oh, I'm just gonna go ahead and hang out today.
There's a plan.
But it's a written plan, very clear expectations. Yes. So we just need to think the same way. So these sending labs and residency builders are getting a lot of traction because they're helping us put written stuff together. So here's the content. What do you want your people to learn and practice? And some of this now gets cultural in nature. So like Joe says, he only needs the Bible, but other people are going to need more books. Right? But the idea is, depending how you are, but I think, like, if you leave it to me, if you leave me to buy books, I'm going to buy leadership books. I'm not going to buy books about all these other subjects. But we need to study ethics, though, right? We need to study finances. We need to have a well-rounded approach. So that's some of those skills we want them to develop.
Mark, I look for the guy who's got the plan, but I look for even more for the guy that can call the audible and make that plan look like it was planned.
Yeah.
Too many guys plan, they do the plan and they lose people. They don't know how to call the audibles. And I want the guy who can, like an Aaron Rodgers, who can call the audibles and win the game.
Right. Change the line of scrimmage.
That's right.
So one skill we want them to develop is leading a meeting. We actually have a little, used to be a one-day workshop. I got it compressed into 45 minutes on how to lead powerful ministry meetings. But how to lead a powerful meeting. We have a little workshop on that, but mail out an agenda ahead of time. You know, like when you walked in here today, did you have the stuff waiting on you? Is it clear what the schedule is, et cetera, et cetera? You know, that's a skill we want. All right. All right, here we go. If you guys can hang with me, are you doing okay? All right. I am not trying to be faithful. But I admit, I'm trying to beat this little snowstorm. I will admit it. But
We don't believe you.
I have done this. This is my 4th sending lab. If you turn to session 5, I have found session 5 to be kind of awkward when I've done it because it's stuff that we've talked about all day. And I feel like I'm talking to more than average IQ people here in the room. And I feel kind of like a dum-dum. Mandy, tell me your degree again.
I have an adult neurology nurse practitioner.
Nurse practitioner. Does anybody know what a nurse practitioner can do? Does anybody know?
Everything.
That she can prescribe drugs?
Yeah.
So I have a sister-in-law but she's a big deal. So it's like, I don't want to, like, I want to call the audible, like Mel just said. All right.
Mandy's better than a doctor.
Well, it's true.
Listen to ya.
Yeah. Well, doctor visit's over. Mandy's still here. All right, page 14 and 15. This is the multiplication strategy. So this is part of North American Mission Board stuff that we're going to see everywhere. But these are the essentials: the vision, the plan, the people. What is God leading our church to do in sending and multiplying? Isn't this kind of what we've been talking about all day? The plan, how we accomplish our vision for sending and multiplying, For Graceway, it's maybe more clear because you've got this planter in tow. The others, you're still getting things going. Valley, you're at the end of the road with Maxo. You're helping get a new building and maybe look at a new plan. And people, how will we discover, develop, and deploy? And that's the 3 Ds, that's been said a lot during my 21 years at NAM. Discover, develop, deploy. Has anybody ever heard of Acres of Diamonds? Temple University? So the idea is, like, there's all these acres of diamonds beneath our feet, but we have to take the time to look. We have to think about when we're studying Scripture. Have you ever heard of Scripture is very rich? And there's one passage today, we could look at it like this Acts passage, but if we really looked at it with the date, author, background, you know how we could study the rest of the day on that one passage. And there's so much there. Like if we study the Psalms, it's all in alphabetical order. I didn't know if you knew that or not, but that's in the order of the Hebrew alphabet. But there's all this greatness. It's just below us, but we got to take time to look. And that's the discover, develop, and deploy. This is the strategy. So is the pointer the green line, Steve? Oh, Steve, duck out? Okay. But the discipleship pathway, that's the question they ask at assessment. The discipleship pathway. You see that green arrow pointing down from lost to growing disciple? They're going to ask that. How many planters think are ready for that question? Not many, that's why we're here today. Right? And then the ministry training, all this stuff that we just got through talking about, and that residency where we actually set up and in some ways, Juan Lupita, you're going to take them through a residency because they don't really know what it's like to live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. They've been in San Antonio, Texas. And they themselves have told me, we're going to have to be better at English. And I've heard this from many other Spanish people. Because you're immersed in the English language up here. We do not have, from my understanding, is anybody here in the room fluent in Spanish? Okay, I know at Graceway you have several people that really know a lot of Spanish. Like you have Brian Honeycutt, and I can't name another gentleman's name. I watched him talk with Juan. Jose. But for the most part, do you see what I mean? Like he's got a pretty big, steep learning curve coming here. And then we have church planter. So we got lost, discipleship pathway. All right, so that picture is on page 14. And it's basically a review of everything we've been doing. And do you see what I'm saying on page 15? These are the questions that we just answered. Discover, what do you look for in a potential planter? Where can you find potential leaders? Who has potential to be leaders in your church? Do you see how we just talked about that? So I'm not trying to rush through anything, but you see how we just spent an hour covering that. All right, there's your discover, develop, deploy on page 15. Then we have the notes. There's going to be more slides here. Just to be clear, this is phase 1. So phase 1 is this discipleship pathway. So in your current church, how many of you can articulate your discipleship pathway? Okay, if you have to think about it, okay, that means you don't know, according to lawyers. Okay, you took too long. So this is where the Sitting Lab can help you today, not just plant the church, but what is your plan? So I know these guys are no longer around, Bill Hybels and Rick Warren, but Rick Warren had a baseball diamond. But you need to have something in place. What is your plan? Bill, do you guys have a plan at Highland Crest?
Yes.
Is it something that you could email to to the rest of it? Could you email it to Guy or to me, and we could send it out to everybody?
Yes.
Is it something you want to talk about now? Can you share it?
Sure. So we've got, basically, we go from hospitality, as people come into the church. So we look at it a couple different ways. One is, you're a visitor, you're a friend, you become a member, and then we look at it from a perspective, and what you're referring to would be, we've got hospitality as people come into the church. And then as people get into the church, we either have basically a new members class, the introduction to our church, or trying to get them to become a part of a small group to get to know people in the church in a smaller. Now, hospitality, we really like that to be somebody asking them to go out for lunch and individual, welcoming, right? Besides just doing that at the church doors. And then within the church, we've got a drawing, and it's basically rhythms. And if I think about everything, it's the worship service, Sunday school, Wednesday night discipleship training, mission trips, retreats, and it's just kind of a rhythm going around. And then on the outpouring of that, we've got leadership pipeline, levels 1, 2, and 3, and then multiplication.
So, Bill, if you send that to me, I have CSV. I just have, I can email it to everybody really quickly.
It's
Email.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things coming into my role is we're trying to get back to getting all of our different committees and teams together. So we just reviewed that on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Just so that we had those, we got the group together just to, what are we about and how do we do that? And we were just going through a book on evangelism, creating a culture of evangelism, where we're all in it together, right? Mm-hmm. So none of those activities are independent or separate, and we really ought to be working together to make sure there's not gaps.
So a lot of the stuff that we just talked about, you've got it in your plan.
Yes.
Because you're using the words environment, rhythms, and
Yep.
it takes a while to integrate it in the church.
Right.
Do you have any idea how long it takes at Highland Crest?
Hopefully, you've got new I don't know. In different aspects of that, hopefully right away, you're welcoming it. Some people, though, want to get engaged right away, right? And others are, I just kind of want to attend on Sundays, right?
Could be years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in church planning world, we're finding it's about 18 months.
I was going to say 1 to 2 years. Yeah.
So because like one of the big questions is, when are you going to start taking in some money around here, right? That's what they're asking the church planner. But we find it's usually taking them 18 months for people to start giving regularly and to start tithing or coming close to tithing. So it takes time. But that discipleship pathways, thank you, Bill, for sharing. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's internalizing the mission of God, and it's also some of those external things that Bill's putting before everybody. It doesn't happen all at once, and I know you've seen people get involved in your church over the years. It doesn't happen in a week or a month. It takes time.
Yeah, in fact, Mark, one of the things that can be a little frightening is the people that come in on day one and want to jump in and be fully involved. It's like usually that sends up a red flag for me, because either they've been doing that in another church and had to leave for some nefarious purpose, or they're just trying to gain a foothold or control or something else. And
And this is
it should be a little process.
And along that line, what Guy's talking about, one of the most important things is to have a new members course. Whether it's 3 hours, 3 days. Trinity Baptist has the longest one, it's 16 weeks. I think that's a little bit long, but
Ours is 8 weeks.
8 weeks. But, so this stuff's not any material, but this is another good book to write down. This is one of Guy and my mentors, but High Expectations by Tom Rainer, Thom. It actually came out in 98, and then there's a re-edited version. But it's basically the expectations of the member. So like when we're talking about like that stuff we're talking about earlier, like them coming twice a month, I mean, unless they're providentially hindered or, you know, something's really going wrong.
The short version of that is How to Be a Church Member by Rainer, which is a tiny booklet that we hand everybody that comes into our church meeting.
That's a good book to give all the members, and the High Expectations is a good book for all your leaders to read through. It's it's like rain and then ER, and it's THOM, Tom Rainer. He's written many, many books. This one's called High Expectations. And we find the church plants that don't develop a new members course, it doesn't go well. So, but if these are cliches, but it's true. You can only inspect what you expect.
So what's a good way to articulate the discipleship plan in a short sentence?
Yeah, I think it's got to be more in a sentence. I think a picture, like Bill Hybels had a thing. We're here to take people who are far from God to be fully devoted followers of Christ. That would be a short sentence. To be those who are far from God to become fully devoted followers of Christ.
Just a word about high expectation. The highest expectation church I've ever been a part of grew from 10 members to 10,000 members in under 10 years, with the average age under 30. And it took a year to onboard into that church. Before you became a member, you had meetings with 2 different elders, and you were demonstrating that you were already active in a church ministry. You had a tithing record. I mean,
Yeah.
everything.
And this is also this is also just the rule of thumb. It's not everybody, but church plants attract some troublemakers.
Yep.
So the new members course keeps them out. So we call it fencing, you know, like,
Remember the good old days when we talked about people that would come to hijack the vision?
yeah,
Well,
the people that would hijack the vision.
even in an established church, it's, to become a member of Highland Crest, you have to go through the new members course. And there's some people that just won't go to it because they don't feel that they need to. That, why would I go back through a new members course?
Yeah.
And kind of for the same purpose, I mean,
But if you,
wouldn't you?
but if you don't want to become part of our church, it's okay. You're not going to be in leadership. It's okay.
By the way I handled that, because I had the same scenario, nobody wanted to do a new members course. They all wanted me to do one, but nobody wanted to come. And so the way I handled it is I taught the new members course from the pulpit over a series of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Sundays.
There you go.
Everybody in the whole church got a new members course.
But I think what Guy and Bill are saying, though, the pushback can actually be healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at Highland Crest, when we went through it, Scott he could answer any question you brought up because he'd been there from day one.
Yeah.
One thing, he had experience, he knew people, and he just handled everybody so well in their questions. So they have Scott.
So-
He does an excellent job.
And also, like, you get into communities like this, if you're in Sheboygan or Appleton, and your pastor's part of the ministry council, and somebody really wants to speak in tongues, well, guess what? I'm friends with the pastor of the Assembly of God Church. I think you should go there. I'm his friend. He's a good guy. Let's have you go there. You know what I mean? Rather than you bat. And I know for me, like, looking back on this, like when I know people didn't join the church when I did new members courses in my church in New Jersey, like I was just really disappointed. But I look back, and I should have been saying, thank you, Lord, for not letting them join. And you know, we have all the other social issues, which are it's too much to go into right now, but there are so many people that have a political bent or something or another, and they want to push that, but that's not who we are, right?
Right.
We're apolitical. We're not going to get into politics. And I would actually make that clear, in my new members course, if I were doing one today, is like, we're not going to let one politician run us. All right. So, sounds like that was a healthy discussion. The discipleship making culture requires a clear picture. So that's that baseball diamond. Bill, it sounds like you invite people to go to Highland Crest. You got a picture in the foyer people can look at.
We don't, I wouldn't say we have it there, no.
But you have a picture.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's the training process. So you see how the discipleship pathway process is different than the training process. The training process is they're becoming a leader. The discipleship pathway is they're becoming a member, they're becoming a disciple of the church. And then the next level is the leader.
It's like it says in the book of Hebrews, you should be teachers by now.
You should be teachers instead of, having the milk. And this is that residency. If we want to come up with another word, internship, we really do believe in having a written plan, though, because when you write it down, it's going to make all the difference when you have the structures in place. One of my all-time favorite people was a guy who worked for the North American Mission Board named Jack Smith. I don't know he's probably passed away, but he said to me, he was 72 when I was leaving New Jersey, and he said, Mark, you will find different structures when you move to Wisconsin. Like I worked with him in the Metro New York area, and we were working on strategy. And he goes, and you will have to discover what those structures are and work according to those structures. And I'm just listening, I'm thinking, Jack, what are you talking about? But that's part of what being a leader is. The leader has to understand what the structures are. Some of the structures are very clear, and then some of them are unspoken, if you will. But part of the residency is you're helping them become clear. You systematically develop and deploy other church planters or missionaries. And this is that thing that's over and over. Discover, develop, deploy. I do want to give you this on the discover. If I can do the Harrison assessment for anybody that you think has potential, I'm glad to do that for free. These are the guiding questions. And this is the stuff that we've talked about on the discover already. So you get what I'm talking about with the review here. I think if you can start thinking about some other questions that I would actually say is, who do you have in mind to talk to have a see in you conversation? I see in you the potential to do fill in the blank. Who is it in your life right now? Who is it in your sphere of influence? Because your sphere of influence is different than anybody else's in the room. But that's that last question. Who could you see? And I'm even just talking about who could be a leader in the church. Like Tim brought up Aaron Joswack, how people, you saw the potential in Aaron, and others that I was hanging around didn't. So we all have a different perspective.
I think it was the whole comment you made, though, is like, if you met him for 5 minutes, yeah, I don't know. But if you spent any time around him,
Yes.
that was a different thing.
Yes. This is the big one here on the top question is, how will you intentionally do it instead of just hoping it'll happen? So I can tell you as a youth minister, I always thought, we need more leaders, we need more leaders. But I never really had an intentional process during that time. Does that make sense? Like, I was the one that screwed up. I didn't have anything intentional like this stuff that we're talking about today. And these environments, training environments, ministries, that you can invite people into for spiritual growth and leadership development. So we pretty much have 3 3 or 4 different levels in denominational life. You have your local church, we have the association, we have the state convention, we have national events, but then we have so many other resources. And with the internet, we have so much online that people can do for free. And you did see in the back of your workbook today, in the appendices, the multiplication pipeline is actually free. You have Exhibit C with Bill and Chad, how they're using multiplication pipeline, the 3 levels. So the 3 levels of multiplication pipeline that are offered are, the first level is spiritual formation, the second level is being a leader, and the third level is being a church planter. But how do you know what you don't know? All that stuff is there for you. It's all free. But you got to go online to get it. It's just one QR code away from you, right here in your book. All right. Deploying the leaders. You know, we've talked about that. We'd let them do a lot of things in the church. We get them out there in the community. Probably some stuff we didn't talk about is, what community events could we get them deployed in? Where would you have them go? Maybe like a town hall meeting or city meeting? Where would you have them go? I tell you one place I invite people. Has anybody heard of Toastmasters? So Gene was talking about like poor delivery, and like this is one of my biggest complaints. So Toastmasters is an international public speaking organization. So I've watched men and women. I've been a member of Toastmasters since 1991. I'm currently not a member, but I've watched it change lives. And I've watched people from all walks of life benefit on how to talk to people in public with table topics and prepared speeches and evaluating speeches. But I would certainly think of other community events. If somebody's a real downer, get them in the Optimist Club. I mean, we got to go on and on, right? All right, so here's the guided debrief today on this. What stood out to you? What did you hear during this session 5?
I think what stood out to me is the emphasis on leadership.
Yes.
You know, one of the things I learned as a sergeant of Marines that I always kept close to my vest. You can delegate authority, but responsibility always lies with you. You can delegate authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility. It always lies with you.
When I think of the military, I think clear expectations. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Anybody else here? Joe?
One of the things that stood out to me is the potential within even Graceway, that there are people within Graceway right now.
Yep.
Who are potential church planters.
And it gets back to that. It gets back to that experiencing God question asked earlier in the day. Where is God at work? Who's He at work in? And that, assuming that we believe that He is at work, right?
And I think that they just need the structure
Yes.
to develop them.
Maybe they're not aware that they're capable.
That's what the whole point of today is.
Yeah.
That they may not be aware. You're awakening the sleeping giant.
Beautiful.
You know, to draw an illusion, we can let them watch cartoons, right?
Yep.
And those cartoons can be yabba dabba do,
Yep.
or they can be conjunction junction. Does that make sense?
Yep. All right. This gets back to where we first started. Where can you be? Where are you? Where can you be? And you do see there's a website for that, don't you? If you can read that, sinnetwork.com/mobilize. And all that is in your workbook. So here's the big question. What does your church need to do to increase engagement in church planting?
Get one and eat it here quick.
Yep.
Get this INS lawyer moving.
Anybody else want to say? What can you do?
Mark, I think the elephant in the room with local church and church planting is a lot of our people think there's already too many churches. of any given community is actually in a church. And if you just count the gospel, according to the Wisconsin Family Coalition, there are roughly 1,000 gospel preaching churches in the whole state of Wisconsin right now.
And there's 6 million people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we have one of the highest unchurched ratios in the world today. We need missionaries here, not going elsewhere, but we need more churches. There's not too many.
Isn't it just a few years ago, we had a number of Native American, that were reaching out for, Baptist churches to come to their, like, Memorial County.
Yeah, I think you might have seen that from like Dennis Hansen, but like currently, to my knowledge, we have no one, do we, Guy, in our reservations?
Those efforts have largely collapsed.
Yeah.
Just a word, we have 7 different Native American reservations within Bay Lakes territory, 7 different ones. They don't play with each other, much less with Anglos, and especially since COVID, getting access to the reservations now is almost impossible.
Yeah.
I've been escorted off of a couple of them now.
Yeah, the guy who just left Wilkie Richmond, he was in the Bad River and Red Cliff associations, or reservations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lac du Flambeau, we had a work ongoing there that we sponsored and paid for. That's been hijacked, so we've lost that work, and we don't have any other ongoing work in any of the reservations.
But to handle that objection, the statistics are overwhelmingly show that we need new churches that get started. And our church growth is not even close to keeping up with our population growth. So on a personal level, does anybody want to just say, what's God leading you to do? Ron?
Walk by faith and not by sight.
Walk by faith?
Live like you mean it.
Yeah.
Therefore, go.
Anybody else?
Here's what I'm doing right now, is I'm touring churches across the South in the Bible Belt, and asking for 100 true missionaries to come to 100 of our communities, to start at least a Bible study, and sponsored by that church or association we don't have the money for. And I just want to start something. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's good. All right, so these are then these appendices. That's that Sending Church 101. What does it take? You don't need to put your phone up to this one, but it's right there in the appendices. What we went through earlier. There's the pipeline. So if you want to meet the experts in Green Bay, we have an expert on the back row here. We have Bill, we have Chad. They can help you. We do have people at the North American Mission Board that can help you. But the cool thing about this is you can customize it. If you want to know the #1 person I know in Wisconsin, it's Kurt Owens at You Flourish Church in Milwaukee. He has customized this, so he pays $87 a month, and he puts his own material, includes it, integrates it on there. So we do have people that are using it, where it's not just, oh, they're just throwing up another QR code. You know what I mean? And you've got Exhibit C here with Bill. There's the Residency Quick Start Guide. Once again, inviting you down to Milwaukee, May 18th and 19th. I do just want to preface that. If you come to the Residency Builder in Milwaukee, you say, where's Millman at? I just want to let you know, Lord willing, depending what happens with the Iran war, that I've been invited to Armenia. So I'm going to Armenia May 14th and 23rd. I've been invited by North Carolina Baptists to do some of this stuff, so I'm going there. There's the Residency Builder, and you can register for that online. We've talked about that. There's one last thing I need you to do to keep my job. If you will put your phone up, so if everybody now will get your phone out, I'm going to get Mel to get his phone out. But if you'll get your phone out, and if you will just, this is going to take about 5 minutes, but this is the last thing of the day. I need you to complete this. And feel free to be honest. Just say very nice things about me. Okay. So Mel and Lori, do you want to fit, this is the very last thing. Do you want to get your phone out and do this survey for me? This is the very last thing. Hey, Bill, could I give you the mic here so you could give instructions?
Yeah.
If you've never done this before, Bill's going to walk us through it.
The old girl got it.
All right, Lori got it?
Okay, if you put your camera up to it and you zoom up to it, it may take 30 seconds to a minute, but underneath the picture, there's gonna be a yellow thing that pops up just underneath the picture, and when you click on that, that's gonna bring you to the location that the survey's at.
If anybody needs help, raise your hand. I'll come around and help you.
You may have to get a little closer if you can't zoom anymore. Mine finally took it, but. Otherwise, just walk up closer. I can go in.
Does it take from back there, Steve? What's that? Three chances?
It's not coming up, because I don't know why it doesn't.
Sometimes if you click in the center of your picture, it'll help bring it in focus.
Guys, say that for everybody so they can hear you.
Yeah, if you're getting it in within the square of your camera, and then just click the center of it, it'll bring it into a little better focus for your camera. And then usually the web link will pop up.
So I will let you know, somebody will look at all this on Monday morning. They will inspect what they expect.
We have to sign it.
You put your name in the top, did you not?
So whatever you say can and will be held against me. So thank you.
This is one question, what's the least helpful part? Do we put your name in?
Yeah. Do what you gotta do, guy. Do what you gotta do. Our goal too is to help you beyond today too.
Of course.
So if you say, well, I didn't get anything out of it, just call me next week.
It won't expand.
Yeah, your camera will grow.
That's the latest model, that's a new phone.
Look what Steve's done for us. He's printed the QR code for us. You guys have got one of those supportive churches I've ever experienced in my life. I just want to tell you, y'all are awesome, seriously.
Little yellow thing that can happen. What about it?
See, it never did anything for me when I was on it. I don't know why. Wasn't even weird.
It says natural light.
Otherwise, I'll have it,
website.
Put it up on the screen.
Oh, thank you. What is it, more? He's putting up, okay. Phil, did you get finished?
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody besides Phil that's finished? All right, we got 3 people.
I have a question.
All right, Karen, question.
I'm trying to submit it and it's just sitting there. I'm hitting submit and it's not doing anything.
Hit it harder.
Hit harder.
Throw it on the floor.
Phil, can you take a look at her phone real quick? I think I'm gonna develop a support group for the. So I will let you know, people in the North American Mission Board are talking about Wisconsin. This is our 3rd sending lab already this year. We've had 1 residency builder. So people are interested. And they're interested in the stories too. So if you have a story as this develops, how you've used it or using it, let me know and I'd like to pass it on to them.
I'll do it for you.
I'll do that.
All right, we are going to pray in a few minutes. Keep working on it if you're still working on it. I did just want to ask you if you guys could help me make sure all the books disappear, all the gifts. You guys take as many as you want, take them to people in your church, spouses. Can somebody make sure Rick gets gifts? You guys can help me with that. Mandy, thank you. Is there anybody else we need to make sure that from Graceway didn't get it? Everybody good? Okay. All right. Are there any final questions, comments, anything at all from the day? Anybody have anything?
Just thanks a lot, Mark, for driving up here to help us with this.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been my honor. And I want to thank Lori for serving us with food all day. I want to thank Steve for serving us with AV all day. Yeah, thank you guys. And of course, Graceway, thank you guys for hosting us. Joe, what do you got?
I got this page here. You referred to it in the, up on the screen as being the map.
Yeah, the Discover Your Sending Vision.
So you referred to it on the screens as being the map, and it's not referred to as the map here.
Yeah. The authors really need some massaging.
Just realize that you're dealing with North American Mission Board, that they have a meeting every year to change all the terminology so that it's confusing. But the process remains pretty similar.
Well, I think I did just want to point out a couple things too. So for Spanish-speaking stuff, Portuguese stuff, seriously, you guys met Geraldo. I'm really glad you met Geraldo today. I'm glad to get you guys, especially at Graceway, like, there's so much that's really particular to the Spanish culture and everything. Geraldo is the #1 resource. And it really is because of him we've been able to start a lot of churches all over Wisconsin that are Spanish-speaking. So.
Mark, you had excellent questions up there about each section. Is it available to us in print? The questions you asked were even better than what's in the book.
I can send you your PowerPoint.
That'd be great.
Just write that down. So, any other questions? I'll send you the PowerPoint, Charles. Anybody else want the PowerPoint?
Can I put it up on our website?
Steve, what if I send it to you? Yeah, the PowerPoint, and then you can get it on your guys' website.
I'll put it on the website.
I'm gonna end up using some of the boxes that
Okay.
fits on the books.
But that's what you referred to, the questions are a lot better than what's in the book. Yeah.
I just made it bigger just to make sure.
their hearts and minds being open and receptive, and Lord, I pray as we just go back to our churches, Lord, that you'll help us be intentional, or just to build it to new leaders, new people, maybe people we haven't seen before that are in our path. And thank you for our time together. Thank you for Graceway. And we do continue to just pray for Rick and Julie